right, start recording. Welcome back for January, our first TOC meeting. Let me start sharing my screen. I think, Louis, you are up first.
I'm talking about the main app.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean we're almost already at the ship date, right? The code freeze for 125.
Yep.
What is the date exactly? I don't remember what the code freeze date. I'm not even sure this is worth talking about at this point, unless there's something very specific people want to target getting in. Is there a feature that anybody is looking to get into the release at this point that is not already effectively queued up?
I would like to see the IP tables reconcile stuff in. It's queued up, but it's still pending review.
Okay.
There's also some multi-cluster data plane stuff that we've started. We've got PRs up for that ideally would like to get in behind a feature flag. So there's that. About most of it's queued up, just awaiting review.
Just the data plane stuff, right?
Yes, just the data plane.
Okay. Anything else that people can think of, or is that it?
We had talked about enabling a default deny policy posture for waypoint, which is a little bit tricky. I don't know did that ever get resolved?
I don't think so.
No, I don't.
Yeah, it did not, but I don't feel like that's something that's going to happen for 125.
I agree on the not going to happen, but wanted to bring it up anyway. Thanks.
We should probably add that to an agenda topic on its own to make sure it doesn't get lost. It was brought up like right before that block and the holidays where a lot of people started taking time off and such. So I think it's just sort of slipped through the cracks, but we should prioritize it.
So maybe add to the ambient meeting. Would that be the right place to discuss this?
Yeah, probably. Where are we with the DNS enabled by default? I think we are.
We did it already.
Merged, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, or should we move to the next topic?
I think we can move on.
All right. Keith, I think you're up next with, I guess, somebody you know.
Yeah, this came from a Slack discussion. There's a contributor who is working on the some of the destination rule changes for match expression, and let me see if I can find the thread. But the open question for TOC was around refactoring match expression. Right now, it only lives in mesh config, the mesh config protobuf, but putting that inside destination rule will create an import cycle, a protobuf import cycle. So the ask was whether or not we should, this contributor should refactor that out to be in a more general place, like the label selector stuff, and I agreed with that. but I wanted to bring it here to TOC for further discussion.
Yeah, before we get into the nitty-gritty of protobuf, it's been a while. Did we approve this, or is this still something that's in development, in pending approval?
I don't remember being approved.
It has approved on the doc.
Well, approved by who though?
I mean, fair. I don't see the TOC spelled out to that point, but it does. The approved thing is bolded. I don't recall exactly what the process was, but I do remember discussing it. And from what I remember, the feedback was generally positive, at least to progress to an API proposal. And this is part of the API proposal.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that one, it's a very important decision, I think, because this would be the first time we add all of our label selectors or generics so that we could do this, but we haven't actually done it yet. So by doing this, we kind of implicitly open the floodgates to doing this on other APIs as well. And so I don't want to go back on if we did approve it in August, but it does seem like it's more in substantial discussion.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing this, Keith.
According to the doc history, I think one of the authors marked it as approved in September. So I don't think it's been properly approved, at least based on the doc history. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, I'm guessing this was no objections raised during the call. Not approved, which is somewhat different.
Yeah, and I remember during the call, there wasn't a design doc, is that right? And the design doc was written up as part of the discussion in the call.
No, it looks like from the history that there were two different discussions. There was one on August 14th and then one on August 28th. The design doc was presented in the call August 28th, which is what's on the being shared now.
Okay.
It looks like Costin, I don't know. I have to look at the recordings to understand the exact chain of events. But there are two proposed PRs out there in order to get some questions answered. So I just want to make sure we get those questions answered, whether positive, whether up yes or no, so that the contributor has next steps.
Do we want to spend 5 minutes reviewing the general proposal here in the light of?
Maybe the next two topics don't seem to be. Maybe the wrapper chart might take a little bit of time, but
Let's do that. I'd rather look at this one than that, for at least you.
Okay, sound good.
It does look like we discussed this at the August 28th combined working group meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
So unless I'm mistaken, right, the Kubernetes service does not support something equivalent to match expression.
That is correct.
Now, can you
Well-
add it as an extension to Kubernetes gateway resource?
There's nothing in the standard that would have that right now, Lynn.
Yeah, not in the standard. I'm just thinking loud here, add it as an option to one of our Kubernetes resource. Is that an option versus add to an existing destination rule?
I'm sorry, what do you mean as an option?
Like, can we do like a extension ref or to route?
Probably not extension. It would probably have to be target ref, and it would have to be. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I kind of meant. Is it better to have it in destination rule or have it as part of an extension to existing Kubernetes resource? Keith, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that as far as the feature, the functionality in general, starting at the sort of the highest scope, I think this makes sense in Istio. It's a sort of I think it's the sort of thing that we tend to like in the project, in that we're not enforcing a particular versioning scheme, but rather empowering mesh operators to create their own with relatively little API cost. It's a standard formulation match expression is. And I think the only question at this point for me is two questions. One, which API does this live in? And then what's the control plane cost to more advanced filtering? I'll popping them off the stack. I think control plane cost, not super worried about it since we do similar types of things elsewhere. Though I'll submit that I'm not the foremost expert on control plane performance. As far as which API to put this in, destination rule feels acceptable from a sort of traditional Istio approach, because this is where a lot of the outlier detection stuff, the routing logic across multiple clusters like that feels somewhat right for it. At the same time, it's this match expression grouping is more generic than just the use case that's put forth in the proposal, right? The use case is for routing, but this is just looking at the raw API. It's match expression based on labels, which feels foreign. So that's a long way of saying I support the use case. I like the use case. I think match expression makes sense for the use case. The current form of the API, I think, is too generic as far as doing endpoint selection logic based on Kubernetes labels in the API. Yes, it's for subsets, but it still feels a bit odd. So those are my high-level thoughts.
I'm looking at the use cases outlined in the doc. The first one it mentions is unhealthy endpoints. Right, and they wanted some generic, well, they intended to use endpoint labeling as a means to mark pods unhealthy via some side process, right? And then you would pick that up either with the service selector, although because Kubernetes service doesn't have a negation rule, you can't use a healthy or a not healthy mark. You'd have to use a healthy mark. to do it.
Well, to clarify, the use case is to remove certain endpoints from a service discovery, but not mark them unhealthy.
To not
That's the,
mark them.
yes. If you go to the background section, which is where the use cases are outlined, I think where we were before is that the alternatives considered, but the idea is take a selection of pods out of some parts of service discovery, but not mark them as unhealthy, which means they're unroutable.
Well, presumably it means sub-select the pods of all pods that are currently selected by the service, only select the healthy ones, so I route to the healthy ones. Right, that would be the logical use case in routing. It's very unusual to deliberately route to the unhealthy ones.
I think the health is an alternative that was considered, but is not altogether appropriate. I don't know that the health checking is the end goal here.
Okay, but right, I'm trying to get some reasonable use case beyond just more permutation control.
Right. So if you go down, that's the example given in an environment where you've got two regions, each region has a blue and a green, and you want to remove the blue region from routing without necessarily marking blue as unhealthy.
How do we reference subsets in route today?
Destination rule. You define them in destination rule and you reference them in virtual service.
No.
By
In HTTP route.
You don't.
Yeah. You create two services.
Right. That's kind of what it felt.
Can they
This has no benefit for ambient.
Yeah.
What we're saying.
Can they do something like that? Like if they don't want to be part of the route, they don't want to declare it as unhealthy, can they put under a different label on a different version or something?
Yeah, that's the friction, right? So if you go back to the background section, the idea is you want to be able to define somewhat statically the topology or the proper, I'll make it more generic, the properties of the endpoint, and then make the selection logic be dynamic, as opposed to have the selection logic be static and then dynamically change the pod. It's somewhat of a fan-out problem. If you have 3 regions or 5 regions and you want to change the set of endpoints and you remove 2 regions from that set of endpoints, in the latter scheme, you have to update all of the endpoints in those 2 regions, which causes pod churn and general disruption in the system. The fundamental problem that I read from the doc is we want to be able to change the selection scheme based on more advanced criteria than raw label equals, right? We want more flexibility. Exactly, not n plus n.
So in the past, I think it was just last week, we kind of discussed if the feature would not benefit ambient, we shouldn't do it in the sidecar. Is this one that would fall into that category, if I'm understanding correctly?
It would, right? There's no way to reference it from the route. And you can't use it to override the default definition of the service.
From the routes, yeah, you would need to have this filtering take place at well, first of all, this would only be implemented in waypoints, first of all, but that's the same thing I think destination rule today. It might be possible. Oh, right, HTTP route can't reference what
Subset.
subset. That's true.
Yeah, it's not reference subset.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think the API itself doesn't fit an ambient today. If I'm playing devil's advocate, I do think that the problem will exist in ambient, and in the Kubernetes way of handling services.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm wondering why, and I could probably guess why Kubernetes service hasn't adopted match selector. They probably talked about it. We could even probably find out the history of that. But yeah, the lack of ambient ability to leverage it, right, without the ability to kind of reference the subset name. Backend ref basically needs to have the equivalent capability as parent ref, right? Section name for that to function.
Something like
Is
that.
there
Yes.
is there a reason that they couldn't just use destination rule with ambient?
Yeah, you can't. Ambient can select across many services, Mitch. So if you select a destination rule, that doesn't necessarily mean that you selected a service.
Another way of putting that is in sidecars, there are two parts of subset selection. There's defining the subset and destination rule, which this proposal handles. Then there's the reference of the subset in virtual service. This proposal for ambient, you could define the subsets, but with only gateway API support in ambient, you can't ever reference the subset from the routing configuration.
When you say only gateway API support, we advertise on Istio.io that we have much broader support than just gateway API.
Not at beta plus for ambient. So for ambient, only gateway APIs at beta/GA status for configuration.
So waypoints, say I can share the site. Waypoint destination rule is stable.
Yeah, but you can't reference the subset of a destination rule.
Okay.
Yes, you can declare the load balancing properties of the service using destination rule. You just can't reference the subset part.
And that's because virtual service support in waypoints is still alpha.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that. It's just the API insufficiency.
Well, I mean, virtual service can reference those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
no, you
It's up
can
to virtual
say
service.
virtual service is an alternate API paradigm, but we're trying not to create too much distance between the two API paradigms. Clearly, some exists already, so.
Yeah, my concern would be, like, at a high level, is that, and the reason that I've resisted virtual service support in ambient personally is just because if we open the floodgates there, there's no incentive to add things to gateway API upstream. It would just be your Istio. You can do it. That's one of my concerns generally.
I'm a little less concerned about the need for coercion, Keith, about it, but it's still a problem. I mean, I guess in theory you could reference the logical subset name using a host name backend reference. Right? That would be the way to do it without getting backend ref to support section name. But that's very, very hand wavy. And so far, I think the other test there is our answer to users, which has been create multiple services, right, has not received a lot of obvious user feedback pushback. I don't know if anybody has seen feedback in Slack saying the lack of subset support is a real blocker for them in Ambient.
One of the caveats with that is that we haven't yet, multi-cluster does not yet have that friction, at least in Ambient, or at
Right,
least
but that
for
doesn't.
in open source.
Right, but the sample use cases you get, right, like that, they would be equally applicable to zonal or something else, right, Keith? Like you don't have to have multi-cluster to run into those kind of selectivity issues.
I mean, true, but at the same time, where is it? I feel like the multi-cluster use case is more common. If you're putting the effort to do it for zones, you probably want multiple region redundancy, which necessitates multi-cluster.
Is that actually true?
If Kubernetes doesn't support multi-regional clusters, or rather a cluster that spans multiple regions, then to use multiple regions, you need multiple clusters.
I thought there were some vendors who supported it, but maybe not. Also, I would say, Keith, right, if you're trying to restrict, like the examples are positive equivalence label match for region, right, to remain same region. So they don't actually require, that part doesn't require match expression.
If you want
Right.
traffic to go to multiple regions but not other regions, you need a not in.
You just need a positive, you just need a positive statement about the list of known regions, right? It's not like the list of known regions is indeterminate. Right, it's very hard to see a use case for say. If you want to like disable a region, then you have to expand all of them -1 to do positive match. But is that really what people are doing? Or are they mostly doing, I want to route the stuff in my local region, so they're going to do the same region match on a single label value?
So what you're saying essentially is anything you can express in a match expression, positive or negative, can technically be expressed via a positive set inclusion, which label selector does support, because it can support label equals X, label equals Y, label equals Z. Is that
so it's when there's a known predefined set, right? You don't need negation, strictly speaking.
right?
It's when the set is unbounded, then you might need negation because you want a not in semantic. But for regions, they are known, right? So I can do both the positive and the negative with my own set arithmetic.
Is label selector and or?
And
That's the problem, I think. As the API is today, you're setting one set of criteria of labels as opposed to different available values. So you wouldn't need a not in. Or sorry, you wouldn't need an in.
right, but it like within, right, I can do set arithmetic. I can have either all the cluster regions I want or all the regions I don't want to achieve the same effect.
Right, I'm saying even if you don't have negation or set arithmetic, you need a or. Let me be more general. You need an or, and I don't think we have an or.
Why do I need an or here?
Because right now all you have is equality, right?
No. I like in the case of I want to select regions. Why do I need an or?
Because you
An
can only
or an
region.
in because you don't know which region you want to go to.
Or
Sorry,
you want to go to multiple regions.
no, but like I don't know what region I want to go to means I don't select any. Right? The set of regions is a known set. If I want to specifically not go to some regions, then I put a positive match on the set of known regions minus that set. Is anybody saying that the set of regions is unbounded? I don't think so.
But you can't put a positive on the set of known regions is the problem.
Yeah, that's not equality.
Do we? Oh, are you asking if equivalent labels are treated as ors? I don't know.
No, the syntax is region equals X or
Yes,
region.
no, I know. I'm saying
So-
if you repeat region equals X, is it treated as or?
No, I don't believe the API supports that. At least our destination rule API does not support that. I think it's just one label map.
Yeah. I'm also going to check the Kubernetes one. Yeah, Kubernetes is the same problem. It's map.
Ah.
I guess I'd just like to see some user actually have run into this.
Outside of
Like
this,
whether, or just like, there are plenty of reasons why this could be a limitation. The lack of, I don't buy the argument that, right, the lack of multi-cluster is preventing us from getting this feedback because there are plenty of other potential negations that users might want, right, based on a whole, right, whether it's health or some other attribute of the service. And we have enough users that surely somebody would have run into this.
again, besides the user that's already proposed this, right?
Right, besides this user, because for the longest time when we have multi-cluster support for 5 years for Sidecar, this user is the only user that raised this requirement.
Sorry, I just don't know anything.
So we have 20 minutes left. We still have 2 topics. Should we, can we wrap this up to see, we would like to see if other user have any requirements, and also I wrote down the concern we have. Is there anything else we should put in the notes for the user?
No, I think it would be useful to go to the Kubernetes community and ask them.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. Should we move to Rapper Chat?
Let's skip this because this touches on some stuff Costin talked about, and he's not here. So
Okay.
I'm okay just tabling and going to the next one.
Okay, let's go to Mike first then. Mike, do you want to talk about it?
If you're talking, Mike, we can't hear you. At least I can't.
Yeah, you're muted, Mike.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was trying. Sorry, I was not trying to talk. I just wasn't paying attention.
Okay, so
Hear me now?
is the concern mainly about our company's offsite?
Yes, yeah, we had tentative dates approved last TOC meeting, and there was just a question that came up afterwards about if there are some people with special roles who are not release managers who may be unavailable during those dates, and if we need to bump it out a week or something.
Yeah, so Craig, I don't know if he's traveling. And I think, John, you are traveling to the offsite. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, so John is probably not available. Craig, we can confirm and get back to you. I don't, he hasn't been to our prior offsite, so I'm not sure he would go this time either.
You don't need Craig for the branch cut though. He's only needed for the release.
Yeah,
our release. Oh, sorry. I was thinking. Sorry, I had the dates wrong. Let me refresh my memory.
you just scroll down the agenda. It's from last meeting. I just want to clarify who we need when, so that we can lock these in.
I mean, in theory, you don't need me or Craig.
Okay.
But in practice, we have been needed. I've never released so far.
All right.
So let's see. The original date was the 11th, which is Tuesday. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like we could probably still keep the 11th as a date, and just with an expectation that maybe we slip to a Thursday instead of Tuesday or something, and maybe worst case we slip for the following Tuesday. We'll just want to make sure that oftentimes we end up like backloading all of the work and doing it the last few days.
Yeah.
There's no real reason we need to do that. Other than
All right.
procrastination for the most part. I mean,
Right.
sometimes like there's releases where we're like shoving everything in like last minute because we have a bunch of stuff. I don't think this is that kind of release.
It doesn't seem like that to be the case for this one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like it'll be fine. Plus, it's not like we're like off the grid. Like we'll just be like, a bit busier.
Delay in responding async.
Yeah, so, and really for the most part, the part where I'm needed more is usually on helping with the branch cut. Sometimes needs help. That's in the front anyways.
Yep.
The rest is like just getting the release notes and blogs and whatnot. So that's what we'll be time crunched up against, and that's probably easier to do front loaded anyways. Like we could start that almost today, really.
All right.
I mean, we shouldn't start today because there'll be more stuff done the next few weeks, but in theory. So I'd personally be fine with that. I mean, I don't mind moving it around if people are concerned about it, but that would work for me.
All right. If that sounds good to folks, then I will update the wiki with the dates as originally approved.
John, if I'm not mistaken, you've got some extended absence coming up in the next year. It'd be a good idea for us to try to tackle as many areas as possible where you're required so that you're able to relax and we're able to move forward at the same time.
Yeah, the 1.26 release, I think I'll be out like through the entire process, basically. So it would be a good dry run.
All right. So yeah, maybe Facile and I can try to take notes on anywhere where, as we're going through this, where it seems that you're needed, so that we can hopefully unblock that for the next one.
Sounds good. So you two will be the release managers for 126?
For 125, I'm primary Facile, secondary Facile will be primary for 126.
Okay, so you'll fall off for 126. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
So, one thing that occurred to me, especially with Eric's retirement and working groups not sort of being there right now, is that maybe do we think it's a good idea / necessary to have like a US based release go to? I'm just thinking of I know Basila's of course super committed to the release, but there is the reality of time zones to keep in mind, and synchronization across release managers is really important. And all of our TOC are in the US. Does it make sense maybe to have a person who can be available for handoff so that the release can continue in US time zones?
I kind of feel like the existing like 3 release managers of like primary, secondary, and shadow should be able to accommodate that. And it's just really a question of making sure that we're effective in kind of that training and transition between them, and that we identify like any blocking capabilities.
Yes, agree. Especially that last part, right? Making sure that that secondary or potentially tertiary has the expertise to be able to do that. Who I don't remember who the secondary is.
For 125, I'm primary, Facilis secondary, and I think is it Ben who's tertiary?
So for one,
Oh, sorry, no,
Daniel. Okay, so for 126, it would be Facila primary, Daniel secondary,
Yes.
and then TBD on tertiary.
I haven't looked at the spreadsheet to see if anyone signed up for tertiary yet.
Yeah, by the way, Daniel is also moving to Europe. I think it's going to be really hard to put a hard requirement. There is one person available in US.
Yeah, I think we're aware of that. So to the extent that we can try to like front load some of this and work around it, I'm less concerned about having Daniel available to shadow on this one, and more that he'll be available as a secondary for the next one.
Agreed. Yes, that's the thing we want to make sure we are that we keep in mind.
Because obviously, like he's done this before.
Right, he's done primary before, so no concern.
Yeah. The training is not a requirement for him, particularly in this release cycle.
Yeah, but we do need to worry about who's going to fill into the next rounds of release manager that Daniel could potentially help mentor.
Yeah, I pulled the spreadsheet. I haven't looked recently to see if anyone's signed up for the next couple of releases after 125.
Yeah, we should probably find the spreadsheets, put in the notes somewhere.
I have it. I'll drop it in chat.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, because one thing we could potentially do is look at which vendor haven't served release manager for a while. All right, we probably need to take that to steering for steering committee members. Is there anything else, Mike, you want to discuss on the release of 125?
That's it. I'll update the wiki and we'll proceed with the branch cutters planned on the 21st.
All right, great. Did you said 21st, right? Did you?
Yes, January 21st.
Okay.
For branch cut, yes.
Okay, that's good. I got confused.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. Ben, you said the replica you prefer with Costin available?
We'll
Okay.
just skip it for this week or this time.
All right. I'll take a note on that. I'll put this back to the future.
Well, Ben, do you just want to give a quick summary of what this is and why it's important, even if we're not making a decision
Yeah.
today? Just as an FYI?
Yeah. And there's a PR out that I would like people to take a look at anyway. So this is basically the ambient wrapper chart. So we had previously said that we didn't want to publish or document or advise people to use the ambient wrapper chart because it basically means you have to upgrade all the components together, which is not what we want to recommend. So this splits it into the two that we had talked about. And one of the things Costin had mentioned, I don't know if he wasn't suggesting we do it, but he did mention it, and it does work, which is I just moved base in with the other data plane stuff, which solves the revision stuff and solves some of the questions around installing different, it basically makes the revision stuff work. So you end up with two charts, Istio data plane, Istio control plane, as opposed to 5 charts or the 1 chart, which we can't recommend people use. So what I'm asking the talk to do is to look at it and see, does this 2 chart model look okay? Is this something that we would be okay advising people to use, and so that we could drop the other chart, or do we just not want to bother? But it does work. It does do what we want it to do, what we said we wanted it to do before we could countenance a wrapper chart, basically. Like those are all knocked out as far as I know. So yeah, please take a look. If there's a reason why you think we shouldn't do this specifically, that would be good to document whether we decide to do this or not. Because like I said, I would like, if we don't do this, I would like to be able to tell people why. If they ask like why we haven't done this. Previously, it was because, well, putting them all in the same wrapper chart makes upgrades, not in line with our recommendations. This solves that problem. So if we don't do it this, then we should probably have a conclusive thing about why we aren't going to do this, so that any future attempts or any future people asking have a straight answer about exactly why we're just not going to do this, or we decide we want to do it. Either way, please take a look and let me know. Thanks.
Do you want to also talk about this? Because in December we talk about this ambient wrapper charts. And
yeah. So I think the 2 big takeaways from that, if I recall, were we want to silently test the wrapper chart with doc tests, where it's not documented or visible to the public, but we have under the hood doc tests that are exercising it at least to some degree. That's done. And then the other thing was to look at doing workshop the 2 chart a little bit, which is what the PR I just talked about is out there. It works. So we could do that if we wanted. So those were the 2 takeaways from that, which is why I'm coming back, because I think it's 1, we got testing done. 2, the 2 chart is proved out. If we want to do it, it's there to look at.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So maybe we can reconsume the discussion on Wednesday. I think Costin usually join on Wednesday's meeting.
Okay, I can put it back on the agenda for the combined working group. Sure.
Yeah, sounds good. Now, who owns the calendar for the TOC meeting? I think it might make sense to make sure Costin is invited, because I don't see him on the inviting list.
Oh. I mean, he definitely knows this meeting is going on, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's good to have it on the calendar.
No, he should definitely be.
Because this is
I'm not technically on the calendar
So-
either. I think it's because it's used to mainly static. Go ahead, Mitch.
The only thing that being on the invite list allows you to do is start the recording. So it doesn't control whether it shows up on your calendar. That's all done through the Istio community meetings calendar. Just about whether you get to click the big record button, which we should fix. We should get them added, but it's not like a big deal.
okay, cool. Yeah, because I feel this is his first meeting after being elected as a new TOC member. All right, anything else we should be discussing? Feel good to give you guys a few minutes back. Thanks so much.